Enjoy your meeting.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the businessadvising.org webinar with George de Bruin. Today we'll be discussing how healthy is your business. And before I turn things over to George, I want to make a couple of quick housekeeping items. First off, my name is Ellie Raver. I'm the program manager here at businessadvising.org. We are a small business accelerator that matches small business owners with expert advisors to help them grow their businesses. And we also offer loans to California small businesses to help them grow and access capital. Today we are recording, so just so that you're aware, and that we'll be posting this online for future viewing. If you have any questions as George is talking, at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a little chat window. As things come up, as you have ideas of things you want to chat with George, go ahead and enter those. Also, if you circle over your cube or over your name in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a little hand. You can raise that hand. We can call on you as well. Right now, we have everyone muted just so we don't hear background noise as George is talking. But we can unmute you if you have a question, or we can. I can just read it off the chat window as well. So George de Bruin is gracious enough to join us. George is an executive with over 30 years of experience in consumer goods industries. He built his own company from the ground up, learning many valuable lessons, do's and don'ts. He's an advisor with businessadvising.org and has had a lot of success working with a lot of our businesses. And we're very fortunate that George has been willing to spend his morning with us today. And I'm going to hand it over to you, George. I'm going to load your PowerPoint, and we'll get this thing started. Just going to pass the baton over to George here.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Appreciate you all being here and listening to me going through this presentation. What we're going to talk about today is how healthy is your company. And when I'm advising businesses, one of the things is that a lot of the businesses do not actually have a good foundation or have started without really thinking things through. I will say that some of this is not the sexiest thing about business, but it is vital for your success of a business. So let me click on here on the next button. So we're going today over how to measure the health of your company. And that kind of means it's like if you have been in business already. The other part is that we're going to talk about a business plan, a growth strategy, and a sustainable path to get there. And all of this applies to any size business out there. Okay, and we'll go through that as well as we go through the slides. Now, first of all, I promise you that running a business is very hard. And I'm sure for those listening, you have already noticed that. It doesn't have to be that hard if you really work on the details and the great foundation that you built your company on. Just think of your business as a house. So you have to start with a solid foundation. You can build anything on top of that, but if you don't have a good foundation, you will run into troubles later. One of the things that I've seen a lot of times is that people are trying to do something, it works for a little while, but then when your business grows, those errors that are then shown are multiplying. And it's not just multiplying, but it is exponentially growing much bigger, and then you have trouble. So in the beginning, always you want to work on finding out what those trouble areas are and changing them. And that is to some extent your health checkup of your business as you go along. Today's discussion, I will give you some insight on how to strengthen your foundation of your company. And second of all is to give you suggestions that, if you implement them, will help you grow your business and reach its full potential. All right, what entails a health check? You need a business plan. I know many businesses start without it. They're afraid of it. They don't know how to do it. Not sure what goes in it, where can you get help for that. There's many resources these days to do that. It's not necessary that you have to have somebody that advises you on how to do that. You can do it on yourself, but getting some help is always great. Cash flow. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I have it listed as number 2 because it's not the first thing that's important, because without a business plan, you can't even figure out where your cash flow or where you would run aground in that. But it is king. Income statement, balance sheet, this is the nitty-gritty of your business. And if you don't understand them, you don't have to actually do them. If you have a bookkeeper, fine, let them do it. But you have to understand them. It's critical for that part. The human element. Who is all involved in your business? KPIs, something maybe many of you haven't heard about, but it is the key performance indicators. I'm going to go into that a little bit later as well. And then final, of course, the customers. Don't think that customers are the end and it's like not as important. They're crucial as well. But if you don't do the first parts, your customers will not be served correctly. All right, so let's go into a business plan. A business plan has all the different elements that you would need to determine what your business is and going to be. One of the functions of a business plan is to figure out if your business actually will, or your idea is viable. Now, you might have started your business and you're working on it and it's actually growing a little bit, but you're still going to have to go back and do this part, in my opinion. Because if you're currently serving a certain group of customers and you're saying that, let's say you come to business advising and you say, you know what, I'm doing $300,000 of business every single year, but I'm not moving upwards. Well, is it maybe because you have the wrong marketing plan? Is it that you don't have researched the businesses that you're going to sell to correctly? What is the plan for growth? So there's a lot of elements that you would have to put in here. Now, again, I said it's like a business plan is not the sexiest thing. It requires a research. I just recently found a website, and that's called lifeplan.com. And what it does is helps you figure out these things through kind of forums and feedback from that. Eli will send after this presentation a follow-up email, which I will give you all some references to check on, to give you some background as well as help to get some of those things done. Once a business plan is put in place, you develop a strategy from that. And this is a very important plan of strategic part, because it allows you to go the direction that you want to go. And then from there, you develop the step-by-step processes that you are going to do. Again, this is not the sexiest thing, and I'm using that word because it's not as exciting. It is not that you're saying, oh, I'm going to do a business plan. And if you just ignore it, you're going to run into trouble later. Another important part of a business plan is that it also gives you ammunition for when you go to a bank or other places to get finances. This is what they want. They want to know is where you're going to go. have you figured out all of these elements? So when you go to actually a bank and you're going to say, I want a loan for $100,000, that bank is going to ask, well, how are you going to pay me back and what is it all for? The business plan helps you give them that information and then give them also some of the strategy that how you're going to get to that growth, to how you're going to give that, how you're going to use that money, and of course, how you're going to pay it back. There is two forms of a business plan, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but there is a one-pager, and that actually summarizes things, and this is very handy for giving a bank initial, or if you are asking a third party, not family and friends. They just love you and give you money, I hope. But a third party, maybe an investor or a person who wants to invest into your company as a part of the business or as a loan and getting an financing of an interest return. So that's the one page, and then you have what they call 9-page, and that kind of involves all of the elements that you see here on the page. The 9-page is a little bit more involved, but that's the maximum that you have to do. So just think back about schools, like you need to write a 9-page essay. That's really what this is. All right. Next, we go to, sorry. The next one is the cash flow. Some of you know exactly how cash flow works. Many don't know. Cash flow is simply the money that comes in and goes out. It tends to be the out that's the problem, because we have a lot of times that in the beginning money goes out faster than it comes in. Cash flow is the blood of your company. If you don't have good cash flow or manage it, then you will run aground somewhere. Okay? The other part of cash flow is, again, if you want to have money from a bank or a lender, they want to know what your cash flow is, because it determines if you can pay back those loans. This is not in essence of banks alone. If you have family and friends, you want to also know when you can pay them back. All right? Even if they say, pay me back, somewhere 2 years from now, all of that's fine, but you need to put that on a cash flow statement so that you know when you have the cash to pay it back. The other part of cash flow is, if you put a statement together, it's over the rest of the year. It's done on a monthly basis, but you know where are your tight spots. And you can start planning for the little tight spots that hopefully are only cyclical, maybe a June, July, where you're running short. So then you can start laying things out. If you have certain vendor bills that are coming in May and you have 30-day payments, then that would fall right at the end of June. Now you say, wait a minute, I don't have enough cash. You can actually go to that vendor and say, hey, can I pay at the end of July? And vendors are actually willing to work with that a lot of times. We forget that it's like that you can actually negotiate with vendors. All right, just as customers will negotiate with you that they want to have a special deal, different price, other add-ons that they don't want to pay for, you can negotiate with vendors, okay? I've even personally have talked to my landlords and said, hey, June and July, those are tough months for us. Can we work out as where we pay a little extra on the other 10 months? And the vendor, the owner of the building, our landlord, had no problem with that. So there is creative ways to go around that shortage of time if you have cash flow problems. If you have a concurrent cash flow problem, then you have some bigger issues and you need to work on that. Cash flow, to determine all that, is a little bit more complicated, but there is plenty of resources on the web to get that. There is actually forms, and I'll send Eli a couple of forms as well that you could start with filling out. All right. Income statement and balance sheet. Do you have them? Do you understand them? Now, some of you might just go say, yeah, I have those. I know what I have at the bottom, and I know what my assets and liabilities are. great. For some of you, you say, I hate this paperwork. Fine, fair enough. Then have somebody else do it. But I really encourage you to always understand it. So when you look at a balance sheet and you look at your assets, which are what you have in the bank, what you have as customers, what they owe you, your inventory, all of those things, and those are your assets. And then you have liabilities, which are your vendors that you need to pay, payroll expenses that you might have, loans that you need to pay off, and the difference between that plus your retained earnings will give you your net worth of the company. Again, this is something that the bank looks at because they want to know how stable you are, okay, and how much money you have in the business. Some of you, again, might say, it's like, I'm living, you know, in essence, $500 here, $1,000 there. Then yes, your net worth is very low. And again, the bank is going to look at that. And I mentioned the bank here on a regular basis because a bank is a relationship. It is not a, one day you walk up to them and say, I want $10,000 or I want $100,000. It's a relationship, and it's a relationship that you need to cultivate over time. So my suggestion always been is to work with smaller banks because they have a little bit more leeway in the sense of communicating. If you go to some of the larger banks, they are really, it's a formulaic way of giving out loans. But it doesn't mean that you can get loans from them. But start working with a loan officer that handles your account. So not just your checking account that you go up to the counter and say, here is my check and you have the balance. No, start moving that money through the, your account manager. So if you don't have one, start setting one up, start talking to them a little bit, explain about your business, tell them it's like, I look in the future, I want to get a loan. Mind you, actually just remember, it's like they are on commission a lot of times, so it helps them to get a loan. If you have a nice relationship with them, they can write very nice summary for them. So all of those little elements help your business from a cash flow and everything. The human element. What is your personal What is your personal capacity? And with this, I mean is, what are you willing to put in? Again, I've seen time and time again that there is a number of people who start a business, but then find out that they're not willing to work those long hours, that they're not able to handle the pressures that are put upon them with regards to either cash, the demands of the customer, or the overall business. And this is totally fine. I've been involved with some nonprofits where we did business development classes, and through that we found out that some people just said, no, this is not for me. I just, I have this great idea, but, I couldn't deal with this, my family or other reasons that they didn't want to do it. And you know what? That is wonderful to find it up front rather than for 4 years struggling and really saying, I'm going to give it up. Again, that's your personality, what works, what doesn't work. I want to add on that is that the majority of the small businesses and entrepreneurs that run it are people who have all different kinds of hats on. So they're not only wearing a financial hat, a CEO hat, or a production manager hat. They wear all the hats in the beginning. And that's a good trait for an entrepreneur to have. But as you start growing and you have more and more employees, you will have to farm some of these things out. It's one of the things where young entrepreneurs struggle with because they can get let go or don't know how. So that's where you need to develop a culture, that you can hand those things off, but that there's still cohesion with all of it. And then the other part is, what can you promise them? What is in it for them? All right? Employees are not going to join you just because, for the heck of it. They want to have somewhere where they feel making a difference and have fun, and of course getting paid, but building something up. And just don't forget that it's not all about pay. Right? It is about, does everybody have the same goal in mind? Does everybody wants to move in that same direction? I've always said it in my company is it's like, let's all get on the same bus. If you feel like you like that bus, great. If you don't, let's get off that bus, because it's the bus that's going to go a certain direction. And overall, for us always was, it's the ride on the bus. It's not about where we're going to end up. The ride is what's the most fun part. All right. KPIs, key performance indicators. A lot of small businesses, what I find is that they're having certain elements within their business that are not performing at all. I'll give you an example. I advise one restaurant. And although I don't have really restaurant experience, it is a business which has the same elements as we're talking about right now. So she said, I'm not making money. So, well, where are you not making money? I said, well, I don't know. So, okay, let's go first through your menu and define which of those items you're not making profit on. So she needed to analyze that. And then once she found out, she really found that there was a whole bunch of menu items that just didn't make money. Part was that the ingredients were too expensive. Other parts were that it took too long to cook, therefore taking more coordination in order to have it all come out on the same time, or that it just didn't sell as many. So therefore it was taking up space in the kitchen, as in another recipe that needed to do, or on the menu. I don't know if some of you have noticed, it's like that some places have a long list of things on their menu. Some people have very little. The people who have little have a better chance of making a profit simply because they are having to do less of dealing with all the processes in that. So if you have 100 items, I don't know if a restaurant does have that, but if you have 100 items that you're selling, it's much harder to determine and taking care of all the elements in those 100 items versus if you just have 20 on your menu items. So we went through that process. We defined, analyzed, and solved those issues, implemented the changes that we needed to do, and then we reviewed it. So, and that becomes then a circle that you go back. That particular company went within a month from basically $8,000 in profit per month to $24,000 in profit, simply by analyzing their menu items. So how do you create them? You're going to look at those elements that you can actually measure. How often do you need to do it? As often as you feel that you need to analyze it. Okay, so if you're having things that move very fast, I would probably do it more often. If you have things that do, let's for argument's sake, it's just like your wedding photographer. I would do it after every photo session, after every wedding. I would review, it's like in the end, it's like all said and done, this is what I charged, how much money do I have left over? Was that worth it? And that's, to some extent, a key performance indicator. Customers. The number one issue that people have is that they think that the customers are coming just to you and that's it. The reality is a customer comes to you because they have a perception that they want your product for whatever the reason is. And you need to really know what that perception is. Because if you give them the wrong perception, then they will move on. Okay? So let's say that you have a hairdressing salon and people walk in and have this expectation that they're going to get a great haircut. Of course, that's what we want when we go to the hairdresser. So if you, as an owner and the barber there, are going to cut that person's hair, you really need to learn from the customers what their expectations are. What is their perception that they're going to walk out with? And their perception is going to be a great haircut, wonderful way of talking as you go along, little extras, maybe a warm towel afterwards, a hair rinse, all of those elements. One of the things, and I've one time worked with a barber shop, and what we discovered is that people would come in, get a haircut the first time, and he would go all out. Just as I mentioned, the warm towel in the neck, afterwards wash his hair, put a little cologne on the male, all of that stuff. And then when the person came back, he didn't do as many of those things. Sometimes he did not do the warm towel. Sometimes he didn't give him a wash on the hair, or didn't do the cologne, whatever it was. So the customer's perception suddenly changed. They had the ideas that they were going to get all those different elements, and suddenly they didn't. So their perception changed, and that's what made customers move on to somewhere else where they will find that consistency. Just go to Starbucks, go to McDonald's. I know I don't like McDonald's either, or Starbucks for that matter, but you get consistency. So the perception of the customer is, I will get what I want. Okay. The next one is unique selling proposition. Now, I can probably talk to you about this for the whole day. It is one of the most important parts of what makes a customer come to you. What makes you stand out? Just having a certain product does not make you stand out. All right? Amazon carries pretty much every single thing under the rainbow. So how do you stand out from everybody else? Are you actually a supplier to Amazon? Fine. How is it ranked on their searches? Your product or your business has to be very unique in order to stand out in all the noise and clutter that is out there. It's a very, in essence, arduous process to work that out, but once you have that, it is key. All right? So let's go back to, let's already be saying is that you have a travel agency, you're giving customers great service and help them really figure out where their vacation, what they want to do on vacation. I have a friend who recently went to Italy, and she said right up front, it's like, I have two boys, all they care about is climbing, going in grottos, and all of that, you know, jumping off cliffs and all that sort of stuff. So the travel agent really listened to that and worked with that. And through that, his unique selling proposition was that he could take what the customer really wanted and deliver then a package that really in the end was what it needs. So his unique selling proposition was that he could create something that the customer didn't, you know, was wanting but also couldn't visualize. All right? So that's for him. There's many other ones. If you're just selling shoes, wow, it's a little tougher. Now, we have, I'm in San Francisco, don't know where you all are, but we have a running store here. It's on 9th and Irving. It's very well known because what they do is they sell a ton of running shoes. And they take the person, put the shoes on, and have them run up and down the street. Not very long, but they see how your feet lands on the pavement. And there is either overpronation or whatever, and they fit you with the right shoe. That's a unique selling proposition. If I need new running shoes, I would go there. Or if I start running, I would go there. Okay? The other part of customers is the acquisition and the retention. Go back to the barbershop. The acquisition was when he walked in from the street or he got a referral, whatever, how he came in there. Then the second part is retention. how can you have them come back after time and time and time again? And that's that consistency of delivering the service. Whenever you add an additional service, that's what they're going to expect. That is their perception, and you can't take it away. All right. Once you take that away, it changes, and some people then, go away. All right. This morning, I get a daily newsletter or blurbs from people. One of them is Seth Godin, and he is a wonderful guy that has wonderful insights about customers. And this morning's blurb was about, what if I was no longer there to sell this product, or my company was no longer there? What would happen? Well, in certain cases, people just go somewhere else to get that service. So on other cases, like Starbucks, we would just like, where are we going to go for our coffee in the morning? We need our fix. So develop your company that really creates such a bond, such a service of what it is that you sell, that if you go away, they will miss you. All right? And if you have established that, there is no shortage of customers that you're going to acquire, because it becomes word of mouth and it grows then exponentially. Some of you might have heard this before. It is much, much cheaper to actually retain a customer as opposed to acquire one. Especially like on the website, up on the web, it takes an enormous amount of money. And when I say enormous, per product. So if your product costs $10, it might cost you $8 to acquire that customer to buy that product. Well, you lose money. If you have that product, if it's a consumable and the customer keeps coming back and back and back, which is the retention customer, then you're going to make money. All right? All of these things need to be looked at. All right. Now, this sums it up for me as in sticking with your guns, never give up. I have in my career run into many, many situations that I was ready to give up. I've had times where I could not make payroll. I would have to go to the employees and say, here's your check, but you can't cash it until 2 days from now. That's hard. That's it's like, really feels just, how will they react and all of that stuff? Are they going to feel like the job is in jeopardy? But we explained it, how and where and what was the reason for it. And they always were okay. Did this happen? No, once in a while. Maybe once or twice a year at the most. And as the business grew, then there was no longer that issue because the cash flow was much better. So the other part of never giving up is putting yourself fully into it. You're going to run into issues, and you can work them out. I'll give you one example of myself. At one point, I had a national recall for one of my products. We were selling very deep into QVC. We would ship probably about 100 containers a year to QVC. We had one time that a product was cracking, and I won't go into much details, but we needed to recall all of this product. It cost me over $1 million. So it's not cheap, it's a lot of money. But in the process, I learned, one is to be stronger on the product. Number two is I retained the customer by actually really working with them to resolve this, as well as put processes in place that I could prevent this in the future from happening. So never give up, all right? Beat a little mouse with your helmet on, okay? All right. Every business requires the things that I have mentioned here. You must make money eventually. if you don't make money, and I don't mean it's like you need money in the first year, sometimes not in the second year, but you need to make money at a certain point, okay? If you don't make money, you're not going anywhere. You are providing a service or you sell a product. So anything that I said before, in this presentation will apply to you, okay? If you sell a service, what is its unique position? Is it a product that nobody else has? Is it a product, is it a service that does things so well is that people really need it, and clamor for it? You need a roadmap. Where are you going? I'm sure everybody before GPS machines or GPSs, we have to use the Thomas maps. I'm not sure if anybody of you are familiar with that. We talked about that in the car the other day with my wife, and it's like, do you remember the Thomas maps? And it was very hard to create where to go. Now it's so much easier. I want to go from here to there, and off we go. All right? You need processes, okay? Employees need processes to follow. All right? Can you imagine if there is no process in a manufacturing plant? All right? Take Ford, for example. It's like, even though they have robots that are doing some of the processes, all the other linemen who work, or women, that work on those lines have to have process in place. All right? How does it get assembled? Where and what's the speed? All right. Finally, you will stumble. You will have an epic fail. Think about my $1 million recall. Think about maybe that you have experienced so far. Coming back to the previous slide is, keep going. Don't give up. And the last part is, if you plan for success. And I really believe in that. It goes with everything. If you're, to go back to a health issue, it's like if you personally want to get fitter and you go to a gym, don't just go to the gym. Hire for a one-time or several times an instructor and tell them what you really want to accomplish. And if you say, like, I want to lose weight, please tell me how I should go about that. If you want to gain muscle, go about that. What is it that you're trying to achieve? And if you do that with that instructor initially, then you'll be on your path. So, and that's what we have talked a little bit about today. You can put it in that perspective. Is you have a goal to get fitter, eat better, or whatever it is, you need to have a roadmap how to get there. And all of these elements before, from this presentation, apply to your business. So you need to have an end goal that you have in mind. And again, it's the bus. It's the ride that you're going to take in a certain direction. Now, some businesses start to say in the beginning, I want to be bought, or I want to sell at a certain date. Those are great goals. And if you plan it, those will work. All right? It won't be a $1 billion buyout by Google or somebody else, but you can sell your businesses. A lot of businesses do that at a certain point. They say, okay, I want to sell in 10 years. Now you have to just plan out how you're going to get to do that in 10 years. Okay? All right. Just a little bonus. The failure rate of small businesses. Two truths and a lie. Most small businesses succeed. No way. This is unfortunately the case, and there is many reasons for that. Again, as I said earlier, Eli will follow up later with some resources, and in that I will put a few places that you can check to give you some more info on why small businesses fail. But one of them is most small business owners don't have a business plan. So I've talked a lot about that, but it's just plain and simple. If you don't know where you're starting and you don't know where you're going to end, it's just not going to go. Most small businesses don't understand their finances. And if you don't understand them, get somebody to help you understand them. All right? If you do that, you'll do yourself a great service. I'm not expecting you or advising you necessarily to do the bookkeeping yourself. You can get very inexpensive bookkeepers that will do the job perfectly, but in the end, I need you to understand it. Okay? So that is my presentation to you. I really appreciate you all listening. I hope I didn't talk too much to you. But in other cases, I've done presentations like this and will go on for almost the whole day. So there's a lot of additional details there. But hopefully this whets your appetite, is to look at your business and take a deeper look at it, figure out what is good, and
yeah, so thank you very much, George. I think that was excellent, especially those personal stories you told us. I think I wasn't expecting for you to share all of that, and I think that was tremendous. I think that really made this a really personal experience for me, and I imagine for the business owners on the call. So for everyone, now it's Q&A time. In the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see a little chat window. That's where you can type in any questions you have for George, and I'll be happy to read them out and share them with George. I do see one that's come in, and it says, I have a shoe retail store. What kind of KPIs would you recommend for me?
okay. Talked actually a little bit about the shoe store earlier, about the one on Earth and 9th and Irving here in San Francisco. First of all, if you're really keeping track of your inventory, you can right away see what shoes sell better and which sells less. But that's just purely an inventory standpoint. You can sell probably shoes for $29.95 or $49.95 or whatever that is, and sell tons of them, but if your margin is only like 5%, it will be, you won't make as much money other than if you sell equal dollars in a high profit item, you will have a much better profit. So you don't necessarily need to sell more of one thing as long as that profit is higher. And the way to do that really is to say, okay, how much is involved in that product? So let's say that you sell in a month $20,000 of that particular shoe, or shoes that are in the same style or same colors, whatever that you want to measure, and you're going to say, okay, that's the total sales. What cost was associated with that product? So the cost of goods sold, and now you're going to do the percentages of your overhead and everything else, and then you compare that to another group of other shoes that are in a low price range or a different category, and you're going to find out where you are making money. And if you do that, what's going to happen over time, you might just want to throw out those that you don't make money on. Just like the restaurant, reduce the shoe quantity that you have and only be left with those that are very profitable.
Okay, yeah, that's an excellent answer. Okay, I see another one that just came through, and it says, similar to what you're talking about with bookkeepers, right? So I don't do my own books. I have a bookkeeper. What kind of information should I be asking for so that I can make the right business decisions?
Please can you repeat that question one more time?
So it was they have a bookkeeper who handles their finances for the business. What type of snapshots or information should they be asking for from the bookkeeper to be able to make the best business decisions?
Okay. First thing is you want to have an income statement by the end of each month. Okay. This will tell you how well your month did. I would not, pretty much we always did a close of the month by pretty much the 10th of the month, give or take there. Because we don't want to wait too long, so that way we're suddenly like, oh my gosh, we have a problem. Number two is you want to look every single month, if not twice a month, at your accounts receivable. All right, it's a simple report, prints out all your customers and what they owe and how old that invoice is, if that. If you're a cash business, fabulous. It helps your cash flow much better, and therefore an accounts receivable account is not important. vendor, an AP statement where it shows all the vendors listed and what you owe them. It helps you, again, plan. Finally, it's that cash flow standpoint. And that's something your your bookkeeper can help you with. What I would suggest to use the income statements from the previous 12 months and start putting them into that spreadsheet. And it becomes a rolling part. And once you put all of that stuff in there, you can start seeing as a slide where your shortages are on the cash flow. So that's the parts that I would ask. So bookkeeper, give me an income statement by the end of each month. Of course, you want to see a balance sheet as well, but if you have an AR statement and an AP statement, you'll be on your way to really seeing where your money is. Finally, if you have inventory, and this is a lot of business who have inventory, you can run into trouble because if you have too much, it hampers your cash flow. So print that out and see, hey, where am I too heavy, where I'm too little? Especially when small businesses are out there that are just starting. Managing your inventory is crucial for your cash flow. Okay?
Great. Okay, so here is another question that comes in, talking about cash flow. So for the lean months, when cash flow is tight, and a bank won't lend me the money, what options do I have? Before you answer, I will make a plug for our loan program here at Pacific Community Ventures, which is the parent of businessadvising.org. We have a loan program for California businesses, and we often are able to loan when banks are unable to, your traditional large banks. But so given that caveat, George, so if this business is having some lean months, they're not able to get a loan from a large bank, what other vehicles might be available to them?
Well, it used to be credit cards, but that's no longer an option. You'll be paying through the nose to, pay for it. There actually is a new service, and I haven't looked too much into it, but it's where you can factor your invoices. And apparently it actually works where you can do it to QuickBooks, and it becomes actually very, you're giving them one invoice to get immediate cash. So that's a way. So it's called factoring. You're giving them one invoice. You're paying a percentage of that invoice, and that can be anywhere from 10, sometimes 20%. And that sounds expensive, and you say, well, then I don't make money anymore. However, you can get through that lean month. All right. Coming back to why a bank doesn't want to loan you money is purely they want to know how you're going to pay that back. And so working, again, with that bank closely, you can have better options. Be creative, figuring out, okay, if you have 2 months that are very tight, talk family and friends and say, hey, I just need for these 2 months, I need some extra cash. Can you loan that to me? Okay?
Yeah. I've also heard you, George, give advice about folks about opening a line of credit before they need one.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Banks love to loan you when you do not need it. And that sounds counterproductive, but if you ask for a loan when you have plenty of cash, they know that you're going to be able to repay it. After that, really, it's not as critical because when you start using it, they see as it moves along that you're actually doing what they ask. Do remember is that credit lines always have to be paid off once a year fully, and most of the time it's either 1 month or 2 months during that time period. They don't have to be consecutive. So if you are cyclical and you have lots of business during the holiday season, so in January you're flush with cash, pay down that credit line. And then in the summer you can just max it out again. All right? And once you have that, the bank will see it's like that you're doing a good job, and you can then increase your credit line. All right?
Excellent. So, all right, here's another one that came in. I have a natural food business. What are your opinions, pros or cons, to using crowdsource funding for your business?
In part, that is new to me in the sense of that I never had to do that. I don't see a problem with crowdsourcing of the funds. It's just, when I said original, it's like you have a bank, the traditional way of funding. You have friends and family, and that would be a third option. And if that can work for you, great. If you can get the cash that way to your business, then it's perfect. The only thing outside that, so just to go a little step, one more removed from that is that in times is that people will ask you for a part of the business. And when you're small, you might be tempted to go that direction, but I would always advise you against it unless you have really thought that whole part through, because in the beginning you'll give out too much of your money away from the company. All right. So in this case, I would say yes, go to the crowdfunding and get the cash flow there if the bank doesn't want to do it. One note for small business that are starting out, banks will require you to be at least 2 years in business before you can even apply for a loan. And this is very much counterproductive what you need as a small business, but this protects it. SBA, or what Eli offers, is another way then to go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, George. This was enlightening. I really appreciated your personal stories. I think from some of the comments I saw coming through too, people also thought that really brought some enriching content to today's call. So really appreciate that. So, if you on the line want to work with George or someone like George, we have advisors standing by ready to help small businesses. So all you have to do is go to businessadvising.org and sign up, and we can pair you with someone just like George, or even George himself. He's willing and available to work with small businesses. A couple small little things. On May 4, our parent organization is having its big annual event. Tickets are available on Eventbrite or pacificcommunityventures.org. Our next webinar is May 22 with another advisor, Sherry Bijan. That one is called Debt or Equity, What is Right for My Business? And so I think that will pair nicely with what we talked today about. After this call, we'll be sending out the video of today. We'll be sending out the references that George was talking about, as well as a brief survey so that we can make sure these webinars are exactly what small businesses need. We want to make sure that these are valuable to you. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, George, and we look forward to hearing from all of you very soon. Appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.